first time addressing you all as a winner. Who knew, right? And I really have to thank all of you, and I got a little ribbing from the Carmen boys about, oh, you won, now you don't show up. I've been working really hard for you, and the most common question I get from a lot of people is, what is it like having been an activist and now being a commissioner? Well, I will tell you one thing that I said. I had a podcast the other day with the Bradenton Dimes, and I said, one thing you always should keep in mind, let your words be sweet, because tomorrow you may have to eat them. Yeah. And back in the day when I was going to county commission meetings, because Glenn got me into that, and I was just I guess if you were a gadfly, I was a maggot. but I would complain because I would plan my whole day around going to a county commission meeting. I know, nerdish, but it's a long thing to do. I would come all the way from Niagara and go to a meeting, and then they would only have like a 2 or 4 hour meeting, and I would be like, really? You guys get paid $100,000 a year, and you work like 2 hours a week, and it kind of upset me. So you know what they did for revenge? We had a, what? What 14. A 14-hour meeting the other day.
Catch up.
14 hours on the job. And I tell you what, we did some good stuff. And we're doing some good stuff up there. I think the thing that's and you guys did this. I mean, we did in Manatee County what they couldn't do in Sarasota County. We got back to our roots. We dug in, and we voted for people that were completely outside of the norm that we had for not just 4 years, but 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. I think my particular race, I spent less money. I think my entire budget was maybe $25,000. That was it. Now think about that. We had people putting in anywhere from, let's see, my primary candidate, my primary opponent, had $100,000. KVO had $250,000.
And lost.
But we just proved that there's a difference in campaigning. Now we know that it's not about signs. It's not about how many TV commercials or how badly you could pick on your opponent. It's about getting in there and being involved and being active and never giving up. Never giving up. I still don't give up on anything today. So some of the things that we have been able to accomplish, in case you don't keep track of these things, one of the things, and a lot of the things that we did, if you caught the meeting from January, what was that, the 7th or 8th, we had the work session, and we actually made a resolution of these things that we wanted to change about the way our local government conducted itself. We didn't just say, well, let's do this or let's do that, or gee, that sounds like a great idea. Because one of the things I found, and I'll be honest with you guys, because my daddy used to say, I'm wide open as a butcher knife. And when you get to be my age, you can't lie anymore because you forget. and so you have no choice. And some of the things that I came into, I could tell tales. I should tell tales. Why not tell tales? So one of the first things that happened, I got elected Tuesday night. By the time that the mail-in ballots were counted, I was already 65%, right? And my son texted me to say good luck, and I said, I think I've already won. And we were at the Chinese buffet by the mall because we're classy like that. That was, it's like $20 a piece for all you can eat, And So the next day, I mean, it started 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. They're wanting me to come down to the thing, and they're giving me a big lecture on, their personal phone is now subject to public records, and I'm deleting porn, and and it's pony porn, a lot of pictures of horses, and so the next thing, they want me to come down on Friday and get my picture taken for my official portraits. Well, it took me an hour to drive there, and when I walked into the building, it was Charlie Bishop and Kelly O'Malley, that would be my temporary assistant, and Courtney DePaul. And the first words that I had to say to them was, "I want to speak to your traffic control department." I was not happy. Then they take me up to my office. Now, my office was Commissioner Satcher's office that has been unused
For a while.
for the last 4 years. I mean, the last 8 years. So, and he really didn't leave very much there for me. There were actually 2 pictures on the wall, and actually they were of cows, so I kept them. And I asked, and there's paint samples on the desk, and Charlie Bishop says to me, "You need to pick out what color you want your office painted." And it was 5 shades of beige. And I look around and I said, "This place has got a better paint job on it than my house. I'm good. Don't worry about painting it. I don't need that." But I did ask for 3 things in my new office. And I now refer to my office as the Section 8 housing of the county commissioner's office, because I'm a minimalist, And so I asked for 3 things in my office. Number 1, I asked for a Florida flag, because there was an American flag there, but it wasn't a Florida flag there. Got to have a Florida flag. I asked for a Florida flag. What was the second one?
Nazi flag.
No.
Stop it! The what?
Org chart.
Oh, no, there were 3 things.
The map. You got
The
the map.
map. Oh, a map of my district. Okay, a map of my district, and
The org chart.
an organizational chart. Well, Kelly stole the Florida flag from somebody else's office for me. But that took 30 days for her to heist. And then the next thing, they tried to give me a map of my district. Now, it's a little bit challenging because my district is twice the size of the rest of Manatee County combined. So they had a real problem with getting a map for my wall that wasn't like wraparound wallpaper. And we have this wonderful gentleman that does the GIS mapping system and everything. And it was just really difficult to explain what I wanted on this map, because I wanted it to be, like, if y'all go to your phones right now and you look up anything in District 1, you see where our waterways are, where our subdivisions are, where our streets are, and everything. And for some reason, this concept escaped them. So I ended up getting a map on my wall that's about 2 maps the size of this. But it lost something in the translation. Evan Pilichowski came into my office one day, and I pointed at this place on the map. And I said, "Do you know what street that is?" Because there's no markings. It's just a big green map. And he goes, "No, I'm not sure." I said, "It's Boardside Boulevard. Right over there is where your state park is. Right over there is where your water treatment plant is. Right over there. Do you see that purple line?" They did give me the purple line. Was the FDAP. So we're still working on the map thing. Organizational chart. Well, I'll ask you. We can play these questions. What is the structure of our county government? Who's at the top of my organizational chart? What? Thank you. Who's at the top of my organizational chart? The people, right? Then comes your county commissioners, right? Who reports to the county commissioners? The county administrator and the county attorney. All right. Further down. No, we have 3 deputy administrators. Now, a few years ago, before we hit our big population boom and our growth boom and all that kind of stuff, we had 2 deputy administrators. Then we went to 4 deputy administrators. Now we're back down to 3 deputy administrators. And back in the day, we had 2 deputy administrators. One deputy administrator, I don't know what their exact title was, but they were over things that you could, like your brick and mortar, property management, building and development, permitting, utilities. Okay, then the other deputy administrator was kind of over your administrative type things like finance, IT, human resources, things like that. We have 3 deputy administrators. All 3 are engineers. Now, underneath those 3 deputy administrators are
Department heads.
I believe they're assistant deputy administrators. Everybody's got a title. We even have a manager of information management. So I'm a little confused, and that's why I want an organizational chart. I do some of my best work in the elevator. And you know what my favorite elevator is? The cargo elevator with the padded sides and an escape door out the back, because I can bang my head against the wall if it doesn't hurt. But I meet people in the elevator, and they're county employees too, and I forget that sometimes I have a shirt on that says Carol Phelps, County Commissioner, I forget. And people go, hello, Commissioner, and I'm like, with a shirt on. And so I meet people in the elevator, and I still do the same shtick that I did when I was campaigning. What was my shtick when I was campaigning? Where y'all from? How's your mama? Right? Now I ask, what do you do? And I'll tell you what, we sure do have a lot of digital creators and business systems analysts, business systems manager, or manager of information systems of whatever.
Business information.
So I was getting confused because I don't have my organizational chart, and I wanted it on the wall so I could also check off, when I had met certain people, because they send you to all kinds of meetings. Everybody wants you to tour their department or their facility, right? That's what it's about. So I got to take a few tours. I was invited to meet with Sheriff Wells and tour the jail, but since I've pretty much spent most of my life trying to avoid a tour of the jail, I thought I could postpone that. But I did get to do a tour of the old jail, the monstrosity that we have over there that we can't do anything with, because back in the day we decided it would be a good idea to join. The problem is, the building is like a Siamese twin. We can't separate the infrastructure that supports it from the courthouse building, so they're not quite sure what to do with that. But it's interesting because sometimes you'll have a meeting set up with a department head or a director, and then as soon as that gets a little heavy, you get told, no, you need to speak to the deputy administrator. And then when you annoy them, they send you back down to staff. But regardless of which, if you're persistent enough, you'll get what you want or what you need. Now, what I think is interesting that I'm not quite used to is that people actually take my phone calls and answer my emails. It's amazing, right? And I'm not saying or doing anything that I have for the last 4 years. But what we're doing now is we are making things, going a little bit further to establish policy. This board is going a little bit further to establish policy. So the Board of County Commissioners establishes policy. Your county administrator is in charge of the operations to execute that policy, okay? And your county attorney is there to make sure that in executing policy, we don't do anything that will give us a tour of the jail. So some of the things that we talked about in our January meeting, that was a work session that we evolved into an actual resolution. When you make a resolution, it's like having codified a law, okay? What did we do? What did we change? Some things like that. We said that we're going to have these agendas out in a timely amount of time so that people could study them, so that the county commissioners could be briefed on them. It's very different. I think our staff is just getting used to this new breed of county commissioners and this board that we have now. We want our briefings on those agenda items a week in advance. So we want to have an agenda out, get our briefing, have the meeting a week later, so we have time to actually think about what's on the agenda, so the public has time to see what's on the agenda. And if you'll notice what they're doing on the county website now, because I know y'all look at that county website every Monday for that agenda, right? And what's nice about the agenda is that, one, we're getting it out there in time, and the briefings that what we get as a briefing is no different than what you see at the meetings. We just get a dress rehearsal on it. And if you have more in-depth questions, then you can ask at that time. And believe me, it happens. They've been trying to take me through what they call Land Use 101 for, let's see, November, December, January, 4 months now. They haven't gotten through it because as they're trying to teach me Land Use 101, I'm asking questions. Why? Why? Why can't we do it this way? Why do you do it that way? And we're making little bits of progress. The nickname that I used to have when I started this nonsense was the sign lady. That was what the racetrack called me, because I kept saying we need bigger signs. And as I've told this story before, a lot of this started when I was riding my horse around Parrish, and I would be going over hill, dale, through a downed fence line, through the woods, and I'd see this little teeny tiny yellow sign on the ground, and it would say public hearing notice. And I'd look around like, there's no public around here to see this sign. How would they ever know this is going on? So we started working on that through my first phase of Land Use 101, and we introduced the motion, I think it was 2 meetings ago, to have mandatory neighborhood meetings. Sarasota requires mandatory neighborhood meetings whenever there is a land use issue, a rezoning, a general development plan, probably even final plats. And so we have gotten bigger signs. They're this big, people. Now, they wouldn't take the QR code off because they're real proud of that. And but not only that, but our neighborhood meeting signs are big, and they're going to have an explanation on it. Our signs evolved into smaller and smaller signs where it just said public hearing on such and such a day. You didn't know if that public hearing was about, well, we're going to drop a nuclear bomb on this site right here. You didn't know unless you went to the meeting or you looked up the PLN number, which the PLN number was not searchable on the website. So we're working on that with the mandatory meetings. The things we put in the resolution were that the agendas needed to be out a week in advance, that the commissioners would be briefed on the agenda a week in advance. We were giving 5 minutes for quasi-judicial items versus 3 minutes. That's a big jump there. Let's see, what else do we have in there? But we're doing the progress with that, and what we're doing is we're making it a established policy, so that if we don't hang in there and we're not, somebody's going to have to go back and reverse that stuff. And we all know that reversing things is not as simple. We voted to reverse the wetlands issue. What else were we reversing? Oh, the 2.1.2.8, which we're going to have, okay, so who knows what the 2.1.2.8 is? It may not mean that much to y'all out here, but it did to us in District 1. So basically, you have the FDAB. Everybody know what the FDAB is, Future Development Area Boundary. That means, past this line, the county is not going to supply you with water and sewer. You're going to be on wells and septic tanks, right? And then they passed the 2.1.2.8, which said, but if you have just a sliver of property that is continuous or, I got the right words? Continuous or contiguous to a property that is on the other side, then we'll put in water and sewer, which basically negated the 2.1.2, negated the FDAP. So we got a repeal going on that. And that's kind of a funny story how that came along, because we were into the 8th or 9th or 10th hour, at the 10th hour of this marathon meeting that we had. And it's not that there were so many things on the agenda, it's just that we all were really into what we were working on, and everybody had something to contribute. And it went on into tonight. What we were having a discussion about was adopting Robert's Rules of Order. And what they were trying to come up with was you couldn't bring a motion on the floor that hadn't been noticed on the agenda unless there was a majority, a supermajority to allow, you had to have a supermajority vote to allow the motion to be introduced. So there was an argument going on between whether it had to be a supermajority or just a regular majority, meaning a 4-3 or a 5-2. And so just to test the theory, I said, well, I'd like to make a motion to repeal the 2.1.2.8, which I thought would go into a discussion of 5-2 or 4-3 vote. And the way things were looking, everything was going 4-3. That was me, Bob, and Bearden, and Tal, George, Ron, and Bauer. And guess what? 7-0.
Wow.
There was not even a discussion over whether we needed a supermajority or not, because everybody knew that it was stupid. So, I said, wait, I can't use those technical terms anymore.
Right.
I will have to say it wasn't the best use of judicious prudence. So, stupid. So, anyway, it's been a little different, as I said. I will never ever again complain about their 2 and 4 hour meetings, because apparently now we don't have those anymore. But we're doing a lot more work sessions. We have back-to-backs tomorrow. They'll be talking about our comprehensive plan, which has been, I think almost 8 years in the making. Yeah. Remember, Envision Manatee, and then it was Imagine Manatee, and then it was
Oh crap, Manatee.
Oh crap, Manatee, we better do something. And we do have some stormwater issues, and I know that all of you may have been affected by it. But out east in District 1, I don't think we could quite, you've got to take a ride through there to understand. And it's like playing whack-a-mole, because as soon as we have swamps that they have allowed building on, so that means the developer has to pump that water out before they can do their underground utilities, okay? And there are laws, there are rules about maintaining your stormwater on your site, okay? Now, I want you to imagine, all of you, where you live. If I walked over to your house and I dumped 1,000 gallons of water in your front yard, would that be okay?
Yeah.
So why is it okay when they get to do it out there? Just because it runs in a ditch in somebody else's acreage, or they have 50 acres or something like that? It's wrong. But what happens is that and actually Pat Neal's been kind of nice about letting me know if that's happening. And then he goes and he moves those pumps out of there and he moves them someplace else. And it's like playing whack-a-mole. Okay, we can't catch them. Same thing with all the dirt that we're bringing in. One of the problems that we've had with the flooding is because the hurricane standards were different when we built this community. And then when we went to build this community, we had to build it up here. And we had to bring in all that dirt to build it up here. Well, what happens? not only is it the stormwater that's running off these new communities into the old communities, all the dirt that they bring in to build those communities up, that's giving us air pollution out there. It's filling up the ditches that they're putting in water anyway, but that silt is building up. It's clogging up the culverts. And you've got to have a lot of ongoing type maintenance that we don't, we sometimes cut our budget in places where it doesn't make sense. For years, we're on Peace River, out in most of my active is on Peace River, and for years they actually had horticulturists, arborists that would trim the oak trees around the lines. Now, if you trim, you know anything about trees, if you trim an oak tree correctly, and of course it depends on the kind of oak, because I think in my yard I've got three different kinds: a live oak, a scrub oak,
Water.
water oaks, right? The water oaks are the ones that go down. Well, if you trim the oak trees on a consistent basis, they'll tend to spread out versus going up into your power lines. Well, back in the day when we did things on a regular maintenance level, we kept our trees looking nice and off the power lines. Then they decided it was cheaper to just wait until a hurricane and just go out and trim what was tangled up in the lines. So what you end up with is that you had a lot of trees that were heavy weighted on one side and had all their limbs cut on the other side, which is all well and good until the hurricane comes in the opposite direction, and now you've got a top heavy tree that the whole thing falls over. So maintenance of certain areas has to be constant. We had a problem with Gamble Creek. Anybody heard of Gamble Creek?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And of course, you've heard of the Gamble Plantation, right? So Gamble Creek is kind of a historic waterway. And what you might not realize is that a lot of the waterways out there were once, and I'm going to have a hard time saying this word, navigable.
Navigable.
Say, oh, there you go.
You could sail on.
You can sail on it, right. There were steamboats that came down the Rye River, which is now about this wide. And we have a hard time maintaining those waterways because a lot of them are on private land. So we can't just go in and do it. We can't dictate that you have to do it. But, people would call me and say, hey, Gamble Creek is not flowing. It's stopped up. And then I talked to somebody in the county and they'd say, oh, well, we just went and cleared it last week. Well, guess what? You got to do it again because that creek rose up, I'd say, 10, 12 feet? Well, more than that. But what happens is those trees, the roots have been weakened, and they may not fall down this week, but they might fall down next week or the week after that. So they'd come out and they would take all the trees away from the culverts and everything one week, but then not realize that all those ones on the bank are just going to fall in next week. So we have a little bit of a disconnect between its institutional knowledge, it's trying to get away with things being cheap, fast, and good versus an ongoing basis. However, on the other hand, on our Doge things, okay, so my thing is I'm a grunt worker, okay? I'm a person that, the devil is in the details with everything. So, well, you'll have some commissioners that are really good at high finance and all this kind of stuff. I'm kind of the one down here with going, why do we do this? We have a lot of redundancy. And I can't wait till budget time because I think that our public is ready to tighten their belts. And would you rather us do something about our stormwater issues? And would you be willing to have your garbage picked up just once a week if we could deal with our stormwater issues? And we've got some fluff out there. And one of the other changes that we made, and well, they told me it was in the works for a while, but I know where it started. Back when I was behind the podium, I said, what is all this stuff you have on your county Facebook page. We're having a BOCC meeting today. What's the most important thing that you should have on your social media page? This meeting. Well, you got to get specific with them because they did decide to put the meetings on social media. Okay? However, you have to get specific with them. That was the first regular meeting, I think it was the one in December, or maybe it was the one in January. It was the first one we kept on the social media page. And then we had a land use meeting like the next week. And I said, and y'all are putting the land use meeting on the social media page too. And then we had a planning commission meeting. And it's like, okay, let's try this one more time. If it's a meeting, right, an important meeting, getting it on the social media page. Because if you ask people to watch a meeting and and it's more than 2 clicks to get to it on the website, people aren't gonna do it. So, and unfortunately, that was like I think the marathon meeting was the 3rd meeting. And the other thing that you'll notice on the agenda now is that they're getting the video up of the meeting so you could watch it live, or you could go back later and watch the video. The other thing is that the clerk's office was supplying us with a summary of the meeting. In other words, after each item on the agenda, it would tell you who made the motion, who seconded the motion, who voted for it, and who voted against it. Because we don't have any way of keeping score.
That's better than the League of Women Voters.
And it is. So the other thing that it does, if you go to the agenda, the video will stop right at that agenda item. So you don't have to zip back and forth or find, point 36 or whatever it was to find that. So that's been a really good thing. But again, what our problem is, it's not, there are certain things that we've got to get down as, I think that was the thing that also surprised me the most. We have 3 deputy administrators, and I always get confused with who's in charge of what, right? So you got Evan, Brian, and Courtney. Okay, what's Courtney in charge of? If I had my organizational chart with me, I'd be able to tell you that. But apparently I need a whiteboard because they change it all the time. Remember how we used to have Parks and Recreation? And now it's Sports and Leisure Services? Now, Port Manatee changed to Seaport Manatee. And I think one reason for that was that what's out at Port Manatee? It's the jail. So I remember when they were trying to recruit people to come work at Port Manatee, and people were like, I'm going to go to Port Manatee. I've been to Port Manatee. I don't want to go back to Port Manatee. And so I think that's why they had to change the name to Seaport Manatee. So it's kind of hard to know who to go to about a problem. For instance, my recycle bin lost its lid during the hurricanes, right? So I'm still Citizen Carol, and I'm going to get my recycle bin replaced, just like Citizen Carol. I'm not going to pull I'm the commissioner. I'm the commissioner. Isn't that enough? Famous slides. So anyway, and I'm like, who do I go to get, and I acted as Citizen Carol. I saw nothing on the county website. I called the phone number. There was no answer. So finally, I had to go to Charlie and say, I don't want to push myself around or anything, but I really need a new recycle bin. Who do I go to? And because I don't have an organizational chart to tell me who's in charge of that. So they finally explained it to me that Courtney has a whole list of stuff that she does, but Brian and Evan, that Brian is in charge of things above the ground, and Evan is in charge of things below the ground. But Evan is in charge of IT, which I'm assuming happens in an underground cellar somewhere. And then I finally got my recycle bin, yeah, and I had to pull a few commissioner things to do it. But I really needed that recycle bin. I wasn't trying to be a big shot or anything. I really needed a recycle bin. First day I had my recycle bin, they ran it over and took off. I'm not going to have to go through this all over again. But so I challenged Charlie and I said,
Your mic on?
oh, I think I ran out of batteries.
The one on the podium.
Oh, good, I can leave.
You gotta push it to the screen.
That's what she said.
That is good. Red works on that one. Red works on that one.
Oh, red works on this, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But anyway, I didn't want to, push her out with anything, but I said, Charlie, you got to give these people titles. You know what I mean? And listen, it's not just our county. I checked out the organizational chart of many counties surrounding us. Oh, God. They've got the regional director of the fourth quadrant in the fifth cycle. And what do you do? Right? What do you do? So I said, Charlie, you've got to give these deputy administrators a title, like deputy administrator of what? Do you really want a title, a plaque on your desk that says deputy administrator of things above the ground? Deputy administrator of things below the ground? Deputy administrator of things that are neither above the ground nor below the ground? Because it gets confusing. But I think we're making some progress. I think one thing I want to tell y'all that we worked really hard to get your call-in comments back.
Yeah.
Okay? Where are you people? Glenn, you don't count. And Charlene doesn't count. In fact, Charlene has a YouTube and Facebook page called Manatee Local. She's been doing tutorials to teach people how to submit a public comment, how to read the agenda. Another little argument I had with them was that I did not want a Carol Phelps County Commissioner page. I wanted a District 1 page because I felt there was too much information. First off, on our county website, our county website is also being revamped. It was supposed to debut in November. Then it was February. Then it was March. We're not there yet. But what I wanted was a social media presence just for my district because it's so large. And because a lot of the stuff that they put on the county page, go look and see what they got on the county page right now. It's probably some fluff about Eckerd College students came and took pictures of Robinson Preserve.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't care as much as we care about, and we need information on other stuff. So they argued with me, and they said, no, you can't have a district page that's supported by the county staff, and we have a huge county staff in our PR department.
Yeah.
And they said, no, because, there's a fine line between campaigning and like, well, but it's okay to have a county commissioner Facebook page. Yeah, but that's all on you. There's no support for the county staff. It's like, this doesn't sound right. The county attorney, you're going to get sued. Sue me. I have a District 1 Facebook page.
Yeah.
And it's the guinea pig. If I don't do anything bad or wrong, then they're going to do that for each district. And I think that's very important because there are things that you guys need to know about your district, what your county commissioner is doing, what is on the schedule that pertains to your district. And with my district being as large as it is, there's certain things that are a little bit difficult. Any of you live in a district that you have a library in your district that probably is within 10 miles of everybody in that district, right? Not in District 1. Rocky Bluff is 25 miles away from my house. It's 50 miles away from my Apple City proper house, okay? And you can't have a town hall in any other dwelling except for a county-owned dwelling. Now, you can't have a town hall in anything but a county-owned building, but the county won't help you out with the town hall. They won't videotape it. They won't send staff. They will give you a brochure to hand out, and they'll tell you that they'll tailor it for your district, which the only thing they do is just change the name on the outside, but it's not tailored to the district. So we have that going. We aren't quite getting it introduced yet because we're forming it and that kind of thing, but each one of the districts will probably have one if we don't mess it up too bad in District 1. So I'm happy to be here. I'm exhausted. I was telling Jack I have spent days where I have mowed 5 acres of grass, cleaned 3 stalls, washed 2 horses, and done all that, and I've never been as tired as sitting in a room going through all these meetings. It is exhausting. And you go to a lot of meetings. In addition to just being a county commissioner, each commissioner has to serve on some adjunct committees, okay? So the ones that I chose to serve on, I really didn't want to do anything else but be the county commissioner. I didn't want to go into all these other areas because I really wanted to focus just on this. But you have to, otherwise it puts the weight too much on the other commissioners. So the ones that I picked were ones that were close to my interest and my district, which was the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, the Charlotte Harbor Estuary Program, I don't know, anything, that was in that realm. But what I found out is ways that we'll be able to help the county out through association with those groups because they're doing their own studies on red tide, on stormwater management. And so what I'm trying to do is say, hey, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is the purpose of us serving on these other committees, is so that we could bring that knowledge and on particular issues back to our county so we don't spend the money on doing that. And we have a new government communications director, that's Stephanie Garrison. Now, that's government communications. We also have community and veteran services. There's a little redundancy here that we're trying to work out. How many of you get the press releases from Bill Logan? Okay. Where does he work? Government communications or community and veteran services? Pardon? No, he's in community and veteran services. Right. Yeah. Then we have a newsletter that goes out that you have to sign up for an email to get. Okay. And then we also have neighborhood connections. They both put the county calendar in. They both bring you a little bit of fluff about all the good stuff going on. One is generated by government communications. One is generated by neighborhood and veteran services. So we still have a little doggy to follow up on here, right? And I hope that you'll bear with us and watch us and hope that we can cut some of the fluff in the county, because we're wanting to not just do work that matters, but we've got to put our money where it matters. We're getting in a lot of funds. We got this $252 million, which today in the meeting, they kind of spread that out, how they want to use the money. Our needs are really more at about $983 million, and we've only got $250 million. As I was explaining to it, we have enough money to do the watershed studies and the topography studies. Remember, everything that we have planned or built for the last 10 to 12 years has been based on 20-year-old data and a 30-year-old comp plan.
Yeah.
So we've got to bring this stuff up to speed to do it right. So our problem is that this may give us, we may have enough money to identify, to do the studies, to see why did we have the flooding, but we don't have the money to, as I always say, when you've identified the problem and arrived at an appropriate solution, now where's the money to get it done? And that's what we don't have right now, unless we do a lot of belt tightening, or we have some public-private partnerships. You've heard a lot of talk about moratoriums. I've taken listen, I'd love to stop the world and get off, okay? we'd all like to freeze time, but it's not a pragmatic approach. But as George said, because he likes to use my pendulum thing, the pendulum swung this way for too long. We're going to have to take a little militant action, a little thing swinging at the other side to make it plump. So yes, you'll see Bob being a little bit militant, me being a little bit militant, our sniper sniping, because that's what snipers do. But we're really just trying to bring it to plump. And I think you're seeing where our developers are realizing that now their last missive was, well, this isn't our fault. You let us do it. So you have to fix it. But it takes a village, and you have to remember that our job is to represent everyone. Everyone is our constituency, whether you're the guy who's getting flooded or the guy who's flooding around. But I think you're going to see a lot more dialogue, a lot more compromise, a lot more innovative ideas, and people working together to solve the problem. As I said during some of my no votes against things, you heard a lot about final plats. Well, I voted against 2 of them today, too. It was 5-1 or whatever. I don't know. Today was like an optional meeting. There were never 7 people sitting at the dais today. I don't know what the problem was. But I cannot, in principle, approve phase 2 when we haven't got to the point where we haven't ascertained whether phase 1 is done correctly. And I will tell you that there are mistakes that are made. Are y'all familiar with Rosedale?
Yeah.
And you don't think that, and Rosedale was built, what, late 80s, right?
It's almost 40 years old.
Yeah. Now imagine if we've been building all these places, quick, fast, and cheap, that just because that's the way the plans were does not mean that was the way it was built. And unless we go back and we inspect phase 1 to make sure, first off, they couldn't even answer any questions. How many houses were in phase 1? How many have you finished building? How many are sold? Why go on to phase 2 if you've still got 1,000 more houses to build in phase 1, and some of them aren't even sold? And they couldn't even answer those questions. They were so used to everything being rubber stamped that they weren't even prepared to give a presentation or to answer a simple question. So we're not being mean. We're not being vindictive. We're being principled, and we're asking the right questions that should have been answered all along. And if we could not vote no, then why are you giving me a choice of yes or no? And today I had a little loss today. George wanted to change. Commissioner Cruz wanted to change and have combination meetings that were not regular meetings and separate land use meetings. But I will tell you, it's very important to have separate land use meetings. Regular meetings are completely different than land use meetings. And we were trying to get the final plats on land use meetings instead of on the, if they follow me with this, it was a quasi-judicial decision on a consent agenda. Didn't make any sense to me. And don't tell me I can't vote no on something if you gave me a choice. So we were trying to get, and I was actually asked by staff to make a motion to put final plats on land use meetings, not on the consent agenda for a regular meeting. That got voted down today.
You didn't get a second.
I didn't get a second. Oh, yes, for lack of a second. Actually, my book was going to be called For Lack of a Fourth, but now I could just read George's lack of a second. But I know a lot of you are in other districts besides District 1. But I want you to urge your district commissioners to understand that there's a reason why District 1 has me as a representative. There's a reason why we are so adamant out there about land use. How many of the other commissioners ever face a land use, a land use or a final plat decision in their district? They don't. They don't. It's all out in District 1. And that is one thing that Commissioner Cruz said, that when it's an issue that regards a specific district, that he would defer and let the commissioner for that district have the first and last word, which it's pretty nice. But I would like the way that you could help us in District 1 is by talking to your commissioners in your districts and making sure that they understand that we represent the people in our district. And I wouldn't want to vote against Amanda or Tal or Amanda or Tal. If they were representing the people in our district. And I would just like you to urge them to understand we know our people and we know our district. But I do have y'all to thank. Mark, who kept me alive out there in front of Rocky Club and brought me to Oakley tonight. Jack, who's always been a good friend. Really, for me. But thank you very much.
Let's see if there's anybody got any questions. Anybody got any questions? Carol Ann? Hello.
First of all, thank you, Commissioner Phelps. Well done. First time I've had to speak, I'm in District 4, but I want to commend you for doing what you're doing. That's the comment. The second concern I have, or this concern, a couple of years ago, it might have been only 2 years ago, there was a concern about the structural issue of the parking deck.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I park there once a week. I'm a volunteer on a committee, county committee. And I'd like to know what's happening with that, because to be very frank with you, every time I drive in there and I think about the structural collapsing, I'm saying, I just bought a brand new car for $55,000. And I'm sure everybody else who parks here is concerned.
Right. So the good news is that they are aware of the structural issues. We're looking at, we've Tal brought the Lena Road property back into using that for county offices. We are very, very crowded in that county building. And the county building itself is not in good shape. In fact, the bathrooms downstairs were kaput this morning. Actually, ironically, their water was cut off a couple weeks ago. And so we do have problems with that building. So we have Lena Road that's going to take some of the load off of that. And I think we're looking at another campus type situation in Lakewood Ranch that looks like a really good deal for us. And what they're going to try and do is tear down the parking garage and make it one where they have the parking underneath, but they'll be spreading out the employees a little bit more. So it'll be a smaller structure. Right now we have the state attorney's office is on the sixth floor. Well, they're trying to get him to move out over into the old jail building, which makes sense, closer to the courtrooms and everything. But they can only really renovate that building one floor at a time. So that's a big pink elephant, in the middle of downtown. But the good news on that one is that they're looking at it maybe for new college expansion, and that they would take a couple floors. So we have a lot of problems with space as the county grows out. There are certain offices that we are required to have within the city limits of Bradenton. Like, for instance, actually the SOE's office is supposed to be in the city limits of Bradenton. It's not.
SOE
Supervisor of elections. Yeah, and it's actually outside the city limits. But and then when you're building up your downtown, that's your county seat. You're running out of room and you're growing your county. I think we're at 2,675 employees, and they are not all in that building. The utilities is one place, human resources is on 64. So we're really spreading them around a lot. But yeah, that parking garage is kind of treacherous. But you'll be happy to know that it's now patrolled by a giant rat.
Oh,
I had a rat in my car driving to work. Yeah. And the county employees got it out for me, but now it's wandering
Parking garage.
the parking garage.
There are rat traps, they're big rat traps.
Oh, yeah, he was big. Mr. Tatum.
Oh, hello. Hi.
And then after.
I think I talked to you, so congratulations. So George was here, what, 2 weeks ago or so? And he made a comment about building roads, and there we go. And he wasn't necessarily in favor of building like 4-lane roads. He prefers 2-lane roads because eventually 4-lane roads are a lot more difficult, more expensive to maintain. And it was just concerning to me. I understand that logic, obviously, and I know being on a board myself, there's only a certain amount of money, but especially as a school board member too, like up in Parish and those areas, I mean, you live out that way, all these 2-lane roads are the problem. So am I misunderstanding the problem, or is it really not possible to build 4-lane roads now so that we can prepare for the future and get those things in place? Or what's your take on that comment that he made?
We had a briefing the other day about capital improvement projects, which our road work comes under. And the question is between two objectives, capacity or functionality. And basically, our former board was more geared to capacity. However, they were outgrowing their road capacity with the number of houses that they were building. And in that, you kind of screw up functionality. So now what the different departments have asked us, well, what do you want us to focus on? Do you want us to focus on capacity or on functionality? So one thing is you have to finish what you start, and you can't have so many things going on at the same time. That was another problem that we got a little bit, our previous administration wanted to be known as the infrastructure administration. Well, that's all well and good, but you can't do everything at once. I mean, they're doing a wonderful job on 70. I mean, they're already up to Verna Bethany with the 4-laning on all that. But Moccasin Wallow, it's getting there. We have a 1-lane on 64. It's 1 lane.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that by hurricane season, we've done something about that. So we're going to have to address that capacity, functionality. Some places it is going to be capacity. Some places it's going to be functionality.
I'll just put in a plug to the school board in that.
Hey, we approved a site for a school today, by the way.
What?
984 or 974 student school on Rye Road.
Yes. You took a tour of it today?
No, we approved it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's put in a plug with the school board to say that the more lanes we have, it causes less traffic problems. I mean, we already have enough issues with trying to get these kids to school on time already, and 4-lane roads are nice if we want to get the kids to school on time. I mean, that's a lot of other factors to consider, but that's one you can consider, because if we just have these 2-lane roads, it'll cause traffic problems and delays for all those new schools we're building out there. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thanks, Carol.
Go ahead, Mark.
You don't have to say me. That'll later. Hiroki.
Oh, that's right. So Carol, first of all, I love your approach to things. I love what I heard this evening about, you want to get the community engaged, you want to improve communications with your constituents, and being a resident of your district. You proved to me tonight, beyond any shadow of doubt, why I voted for you. So I want to thank you again for running, and congratulate you. But I need a question again. But the question I had there, we asked George Cruz this a couple of weeks ago too. We asked him, what do you think about building, moratoriums? A moratorium on building. And he said he didn't like it. I know Bob McCann is very much, an advocate for building moratoriums. Where do you stand on that?
It's pragmatic. I mean, like I said, I love to stop the world, but it's not a pragmatic approach. I think that it has its place. I think there's a lot of little things we could do. First off, when you have a hurricane, why should there be one permit granted for new construction if we haven't dealt with our hurricane damage? There's people that are still with blue roofs and blue tarps on their roof while we're approving permits for new housing. That is, you knew it was coming. Beef up your staff and have a moratorium for 3 months after a hurricane on anything new, so you can fix what broke. Those are little things, and those are little concessions to be made. I don't think that we need a moratorium for the entire county. We need to focus on our infill. We need to focus on rehabilitating some real estate out there that is a shame that we're not, taking care of our historical architectural structures. That we can't put affordable homes and say they're affordable homes if they're nowhere near a bus route, if they're not near an industry that people could make a living wage. So there are some times that you have to say stop. And until we have updated topographical maps, stormwater maps, waterway maps, we really need to stop until we could redo those things because they've been neglected for so long. So that will be able to work into the comprehensive plan. Things I'd like to see in the comprehensive plan is a limit of the number of acres that you can rezone in a year. Because if you keep rezoning and rezoning, your infrastructure is never going to be anywhere near close. We have to reduce the amount of agricultural land in Manatee County that we rezone. Our food is what is going to protect us. It's going to protect our health. It's going to protect our safety. And we can't keep eating at somebody else's trough. Okay? As soon as they cut us off, we're all going to die. Look what we went through with just running out of toilet paper. Now imagine if we run out of food. And Manatee County is...
Toilet paper.
Do what?
Run out of food, you won't need the toilet paper.
That's true. It has little trade-offs. But we really got to focus on that with our county. And we are not Boca Raton. We're never going to be Boca Raton. And if you know any Spanish, you know what Boca Raton means in Spanish? The mouth of the rat. Is that what we really want to aspire to?